I want to thank Olivia, thank you, and thank Aura so much for inviting me to speak this morning. I think it's a huge honor, and not only to be able to be here and for everybody taking time out of their day, but also I love using Aura. So it's been like a great transition for us too. So there's not a lot of companies that hold these business trainings. I think that so many companies really focus on the artistic end, but our decision making allows the artistic end to keep going. And so I want to thank you so much for having me this morning. I would love it if you guys grab a pen and a notepad. If you will turn on mute, I think that would be great and be helpful for the recording for people to view later, so we don't hear people kind of rifling through papers and all that stuff. I am going to kind of share my journey with you guys a little bit before we get into numbers, and then we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. And I also have a handout that you guys will be able to download at the end that Olivia will pop in in the chat box. So I wanted to just share my journey a little bit. For those of you that I don't know, I started my very first salon with my mom in 1992. I know you guys think, how could she possibly have started in 1992? I mean, right? Because I was a child prodigy. No. So my mom and I started in 1992, and I had been doing hair for about 7 years. And in that time, I became what I think is a pretty skilled hairdresser. I was traveling around doing platform work as a platform artist and loving my life. I was doing hair 5 days a week. I was traveling on the weekends teaching. And I thought, you know, after I had worked in a couple of salons, there were things that I just wasn't getting that I wanted to get as a hairdresser. And so I thought, well, I want health care and I want 401k and I want education and I want all of these things. And I can't seem to find a salon that offers me just regular benefits that my friends that weren't hairdressers were getting. So I thought, well, the only way in my young and crazy brain was, well, let me open my own salon. And so I talked to my mom into becoming my business partner in 1992. And you know, I was young and I was excited and I had so many hopes and dreams. And I thought that because I was a really good technical artist, that automatically translated into being a great business person. We can all chuckle at that now because we know that one has absolutely nothing to do with the other. But I was a high school graduate. I didn't go to college. I never took any business courses. And we opened the salon really on this enthusiasm and adrenaline and this entrepreneurial spirit, like I'm sure all of you guys have done. And I think 2 years into owning our business, and I want to just say we have had 3 businesses, we have 2, and last week we celebrated 30 years in business. And I know when we first open our business, we're so excited. And that excitement, though, after a little while does start to fade when you feel burnt out, when you're fighting fires all day, when you're wondering where the money is, when people are quitting, when you don't have enough help, and burnout just it's like a floodgate, right? And I was so busy working really in my business, I wasn't working on my business. And it took me, and one of the reasons that I feel so passionate about sharing with the industry is it took me 10 years into my journey to really stop and say, how can I work on my business and make decisions that help my business to thrive instead of just making decisions from my gut and making emotional decisions instead of fact-based decisions, which I know all of us do. But I want us all to have a choice to say, can I make a decision based on financial facts instead of just, I want something or I'm going to do something. And so once I started doing that, you know, I didn't feel held hostage anymore. I didn't feel like I had to do hair in order for me to get a paycheck. Like I had to do hair, and I wanted to do hair because I wanted to do hair, not because I had to do hair or do a service to get a paycheck. And so this is really when I started focusing on the numbers in my business. And like Olivia said, I joined Aveda, and they actually hired me to be a part of writing and facilitating their Aveda Business College, which I did for about 15 years. I traveled all over the country. And so I'm super passionate about business. But one thing that I found as I would travel around and teach is that I could teach all the business that I could possibly get out of my brain and my body in a 2-day period. But it didn't mean that owners were going to leave and do something about that information. And so when I would travel back to their city and teach maybe the same course, I'd have the same people in my classes year over year saying, I loved your class, but then I didn't know what to do with the information when I was by myself, which prompted me to create 7 Steps to Salon Profit, which takes people from understanding financially, where are you in relationship to the top 10% of profitable salons out there across the country? Where are you in relationship to them? What are they doing that we could be doing in order to achieve at least a 10% or better profit? What are they doing to be able to get these great paychecks and not have to do hair and be held hostage? And not only do we have to see where we are in relationship to these benchmarks, right? These success benchmarks. But once we figure out where we are, what we need to work on, we have to launch it to our team. We can't do it alone. Our team has to be the people that carry this out. And so one of the biggest challenges that I have heard as a business coach and a leadership speaker is, how do I get my team then engaged to carry out these practices that create a more profitable bottom line? And so this 7 steps, there's 7 modules really that take you from, and let's just kind of get into it, right? So my 3 big things that I work with owners on is awareness. Step 1 is just, when we know better, we do better, right? So what is the awareness around where I am in my business? What do all of these numbers mean? Okay. And then the action piece is now I know what they mean. Now I know where the gap is between maybe where I need to be and where I am. And I have to take action. So what is that action to actually carve out that profitability? I mean, when I and my mom first opened our business, I surely didn't say to myself, I want to open a nonprofit organization, and I had for years, I had an accountant and I got my financials delivered to me every month. I don't even know what prompted me to get an accountant, because I didn't even know what I was doing for the first few years. And then I would get this thing called my financial statement and a balance sheet. And it was like a different language to me. I didn't even know how to read it. But what I did know is when I scrolled to the bottom of that financial statement, if it had brackets, I knew that I had to work like hell to keep my business open for another month. And if there were no brackets at the bottom, it meant that I was good for the next month. But all those numbers in between, I had no idea what they meant. And not only did I not know what they meant, I didn't know that I didn't make the connection, the things I was doing every day, the decisions I was making, the yeses and the nos, the go to the beauty supply, my ordering, my payroll, my cleaning company or lack thereof, a towel service or lack thereof, all of those things. Every decision I made and every single day created the bottom line that I had or I didn't have. I didn't realize that, right? So when I got that aha moment, I was like, wow, that is powerful. And I need to spend my time saying, how does the money come in and where does the money go? And what are all the things that we do in between to create that flow? So awareness, what action needs to be taken, and how do I stay accountable? That somebody that is pretty self-managed like myself, I still need an accountability coach. I still need people that I can be held accountable to. And so this is why we created the 7 steps, because it has all of these things built in. And so I want to share this with you, and I'm going to go through 7 steps or 7 modules. I'm going to speak to them in modules right now because this is kind of inside the program. So module 1 is identifying and understanding the beauty benchmarks. And this is like critical baseline, like what's the baseline of my business? Even if I don't know what to do with what I see, let me just know what I'm looking at. So how do we identify what some people call them KPIs, key performance indicators. Some people call them benchmarks. Some people call them goals. I call them benchmarks. In module 2, I call this reading the money story. And in this module, I talk about every number tells a story. And I hate to bring up the scale because every person hates getting on a scale, right? And why do we hate getting on a scale? We hate getting on a scale because it gives us a number. And most of the time, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, I don't like the number, okay? But if I really think about it, that number tells a story of every behavior I have taken on my way to the refrigerator, or I have taken on my way to the gym. And if the number is something that I'm like, wow, I am doing really well, it's because the behaviors that I've taken on have been, maybe I'm eating healthier and I'm working out more. If I don't like the number on there, maybe it's because I'm eating more and I'm not moving my body as much. But my point to this scale story is that every number tells a story, whether it's the cleaning people coming in, whether it's payroll. We have to be able to know what story. And in module 2, I really get down and dirty and say, what does each one of these numbers mean? Because every number tells a story. So we talk about what story every number in your business tells, every number your financials tell. And then what we're able to do once we know what those numbers are and you've identified where you are, then this is the super exciting piece. Then we can transform the benchmarks into behaviors, right? So then I can look and say, well, my payroll's high. What are the different things that I can do to lower my payroll? Because you and I know if I went in there and sliced and diced my commission or my hourly or however it is that you pay, you're going to have a walkout, right? So, but something maybe needs to be done. So what are all the different actions that we can take to lower that payroll? What if I look and I say my back bar is too high? Well, I'm not going to just cut back my back bar necessarily without first examining what are the behaviors. Do we have a budget to ordering our back bar? What do we have a plan in place to look at waste? Is there any shrinkage, AKA theft? Are we charging enough, right? So there are so many different things that we could be doing and programs or guidelines or systems that we could be instituting in our business that help to lower that back bar, that help to lower that payroll, that help to increase your sales. So how do we take what we know now and transform them into behaviors? That to me is super exciting. Module 5 is like, okay, now I know what behaviors that I can take on in all these different areas. But how do I pick one first that's going to give me the biggest bang for my buck? Because we both know overwhelming our staff never works, right? So how do we pick the one that's going to carve out the biggest amount of profit? And then how do we launch it to our team and have them feel like it's their idea? Because I operate my business off of this mindset that people support what they help to create. So if I'm the dictator and I'm throwing out all these ideas and I'm telling them what we're doing, and then I go, okay, ready, go. Let's get to the finish line. People might be excited for a day or two. And then in a week, you're like, hey, what happened to all that enthusiasm? So in order for anything to drop to the bottom line, not money to drop for our systems or our behaviors to change, your team have to have a vested interest in why for them, what's in it for them, that whole acronym WIFM. What's in it for me? Your staff is always going to be saying. So we address this in module 5. We address what's in it for your team if these behaviors change to create a win-win situation. In our business, and I talk to my team about this all the time, is it has to be a win for my team. It has to be a win for the clients, and it has to be a win for the company. If those three things are happening and we have a win in all those areas, then your team are going to be excited to then execute whatever needs to be executed to create that win. Okay. Now, we know, you know, and I know that we are never going to launch something new without having challenges and pushback, right? So let's be realistic. We're going to then have to coach our team into like, okay, we launched this and now I don't see the behaviors are changing. And so we have to be the leaders, right? And we have to be the coaches and the cheerleaders. And so attention to intention, this module talks about tracking the behaviors and coaching behaviors that are not moving. You know, I coach a lot of owners across the country. It's one of my loves. It's really my love when people want to make the change. It's not my love to coach people that don't want to change, but just as a caveat. But one of the issues that we come up against is when there needs to be a coaching moment and leaders don't know how to start these conversations. So we really do a deep dive into coaching in module 6. And then module 7 is all about celebrating the success of that launch, whatever it was that created success. And then after module 1, guess what we do? After module 7, we start back at module 1 again, because we have to then take that second thing we're going to work on. So this program is, you go through module 1 to 7, then we have to start back at the beginning again, because every week we should be looking at our numbers anyway, as we're kind of moving through leadership. Okay, so I am going to focus only today, and I'm going to try to keep you know, my mind on the time here. And I'm only going to focus on module 1 today, because module 1, like I said, is really baseline. And I want to take you through what it looks like to identify where you are. And I'll have like a faux salon called Salon Aura, right? And we're going to identify where Salon Aura is. And then if we made some proactive, productive changes to what we see, what kind of revenue or what kind of profit could drop to the bottom line. So you guys ready to kind of get into your numbers head? You can give me a thumbs up in your, okay, I see Patricia. That's all I see right now on my screen. Hi, Patricia and Olivia. Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up from them. All right, guys. We're also, like I said in the beginning, going to have Q&A time in the last like 10, 15 minutes. So if you have questions that you want to throw in the chat, like as things come up, or you can write them down, I'm happy to address them after. So, okay, so let's get to it. We're going to be talking about module 1, understanding beauty benchmarks. There are 2 different sets of benchmarks that we focus on. One set of benchmarks that has to do with sales, meaning service per service ticket, retail per client ticket, percentage of guest purchasing, pre-booking, all of these kinds of things that create the sale. Now, you can have a really high, you could be a very high revenue salon and have no control on your expenses because you don't know what you're looking for. And therefore, those expenses are eating up your profit and have no profit. I have seen more profit sometimes in lower revenued salons because they are more practical about their spending. The minute you start making more money, I see this even in my personal life, I start getting a little more loosey-goosey with not making fact-based decisions, but making emotional or gut-based decisions. And then I get my P&L the following month and I'm like, how could I have had a loss last month? We did so well. And so there's 2 categories we need to focus on: sales and expenses. Okay. So I'm going to take you through I'm going to take you through 3 of the sales benchmarks. We have in our program 6 or 7 of them. And I'm going to take you through 3. No, we have about 11 or 12 of sales, and we have about 6 or 7 expense benchmarks. So I'm going to take you through 3 of what I think are super important sales benchmarks. They're all important, but these are really important. And then I want to take you through 3 expense benchmarks, and then and what the calculation is for these, so that you can, I think it's really important that we're all kind of operating apples to apples. In fact, when I first start working with coaching clients, the very first thing I have them do is transition their P&Ls and the way they're looking at their numbers into the P&L that I provide in our program, so that we're talking about apples to apples. And I'll go through that a little bit later in this presentation. So team retention and guest retention, there's always a fight. Which one's more important, right? Is it like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is it important that the guests are retained or that the team are retained? And in my opinion, they're equally as important. In fact, team retention may have like a little bit of a slight edge on that, because if we're not retaining our team, and I know a lot of us have had hardship after hardship right now since 2020 in retaining team and also recruiting team. So if you're having issues with recruitment, we just finished an amazing recruitment webinar. You guys can get a hold of me after this, and I'll give you my email address. I think it's up on our Beauty Backbone page to access, but it's a 2-part webinar on recruitment, which is, I have amazing speakers. Let's talk about team retention. The benchmark, the industry standard, if we want to grow our business, we have to be retaining our staff, 70% of our staff year over year. And I know if you've been in business a while, you can think back to maybe a year that you lost a lot of people. Did you have growth in your business? Probably not, because we would like to say that when our staff leave, we keep all of our clients, which to me is BS. We don't keep all of our clients. If we can keep a third of them or a half of them, I think we can consider ourselves pretty lucky. So if we have a producer that's $100,000 a year producer and they leave $50,000 just off the top is off of our revenue. And if I've lost $300,000 producers, $150,000, and that's if I'm lucky, I'm only going to lose half, right? So $150,000 is right off the top of our revenue. That's a really big deal when it comes to profit, because there's also this thing, and I won't go off on a tangent, but in our profit and loss, there's a thing called, a break even, our break even and our profitable break even. We need to hit a certain number, and you guys should all know what that number is, that I have to hit this number to just break even if all my expenses are pretty consistent. And then I have to hit this certain number in order to have a profitable break even. So break even and have profit on the bottom line. You should know what that number is. So staff retention is a huge part of continuing our growth cycle. We have to invest in our team emotionally and financially. So 70% of our staff stay with us year over year. How we calculate this is interesting. So let's go through what that looks like. So we want to take the number of staff members this year, okay, how many staff members I have this year, and divide it into the amount of staff members I had last year. Now, here's the caveat. We check our staff retention in our company every month. So I'll say, like right now we're in July. I can't do July yet because July's not over, but I'm going to take my June retention. So I'm going to take June of 2021 and say, who were all of my team members that were with me in June of 2021? And then I'm going to take June of 2022. And the only people that I'm looking at in June of 2022, this is really important, are the ones that were with me in 2021. So if you hired people from July on, those people won't count in this equation. So of the team members that I had last year, are those same people last year in June, are those same people with me this year in June? Let's do an example. Let's say I had 20 employees last year in January. And that was last January, let's say, of 2021. This January, of those 20 employees, not any new ones that came on, but of the 20, I still have 15 of those 20 that work here, which means that my staff retention or team retention is 75%. Okay. Now, I'm Salon Aura and I'm doing my benchmarks and I'm like, okay, the benchmark is 70, that's 75. I'm doing well in that area. Let me keep doing what I'm doing and keep throwing those deposits in the way of my team. Okay. Let's get to guest retention. Guest retention is also a bit tricky. Our goal is that 60% of our guests return within 90 days. Now, if you want to get really particular and split this up and say, okay, my existing clients, really the benchmark should be 70%. New clients, the benchmark should be 50%. But I'm just doing a generalization right now and saying, let's say 60% is our benchmark. So we want to say, of the clients returned within 90 days, okay, of all the clients that came back in 90 days, I need 60% of them to be that the initial client. So let's do the math here and say, let's say I did 1,000 clients in January, okay? By the end of March, that's January, February, March, you can even go a little bit into April. Of the 1,000 clients serviced in January, I need 600 of those clients serviced in January to come back by 3/31 or 4/15. Okay, that means that your client retention is also very healthy. If you lose staff, that client retention or guest retention is going to suffer. We know this, right? So it's critical that the service that we're giving our clients are also independently amazing service above and beyond our staff. So you want them to come to you as what we call salon clients also. So yes, we want our stylists to build, but we also, as leaders and managers, want to build relationships with the clients also, so they trust the salon as a whole. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep moving to this pre-book. The benchmark is at 60% of all service guests schedule for their next appointment. Now, this is a really important benchmark, and you're going to see why in a minute. But I want to do a piggyback on this pre-book benchmark and say what's even more important than pre-booking is what we call frequency of visit. What's frequency of visit? Frequency of visit is, of the clients I have, how frequently are they visiting the salon? And we talk about this in our company all the time, because to me, a haircut should be coming in every 5 to 6 weeks, and a color should be coming in, depending on what that color is. If it's a touch-up, 5 to 6 weeks also. And if it's a highlight, it should be 8 weeks. We push for this because if I have a client coming in 8 times a year, because I'm pre-booking them intentionally every 6 weeks, versus a client that books on their own and comes in 4 times a year, imagine the revenue difference per client that you're going to have. If you have a client coming in 4 times a year, you're going to have way more clients filling that schedule than if that one client came in 6 times a year. So this is like critical mass, people, critical mass. Get those clients pre-booked. Let's look at the formula. We take our number of pre-booked appointments and we divide them by the total appointments. So we do this in a day, we do this for the week, we do this for the month, we do this for the year. We're always looking at pre-book, okay? And the great thing about Aura is you can get that field of, okay, this is the date range I'm looking at. What was my pre-book for that date range? So let's look at, as an example, again, let's just say Salon Aura had 1,000 clients in January. We'll kind of go with the same theme. And of the 1,000 clients in January, 400 of them pre-booked. And a pre-booked client to me is not a client that calls in right after they have their hair done. A pre-booked client to me is somebody that got a service and booked while they were in the salon for their next appointment or their next 3 appointments, whatever that is. But they do not leave without booking an appointment. That's my definition of a pre-book. Some people call it a rebook. I call it a pre-book. They're pre-booking their appointment. Now, Salon Aura looks like they had 400 clients pre-booked, which gives us 40% pre-booked appointments. So I'm going to say Salon Aura maybe has done pretty good in the first two benchmarks. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a thumbs down that we're at 40%. Okay, let's keep moving. And I'm going to get to that 40% in our next slide. Let's look at some expenses. This is where so much of our money gets spent because we are not focusing on payroll. Payroll in our industry is the #1 largest expense. And if we do not have our finger on the trigger of payroll, it can get out of hand really quickly. So let's look at service provider payroll. So whether you pay hourly, commission, salary, team-based, it doesn't matter. I'm not advocating for any specific way that you pay. All I'm saying is the money that goes out to pay your service providers, that money that gets paid out, not including taxes and insurance, their wages. The wages that go out should not exceed more than 45% of the service dollars, not retail, the service dollars that are coming in. So let's look at that calculation. Service provider payroll divided by total service revenue. Service revenue is the key here. Circle that if you're taking notes. Let's look at how Salon Aveda did. Let's just say Salon Aura did $1,000 in service revenue for the month, $100,000 for service revenue for the month of January. And they paid out 45,000 of the 100,000. They are landing at 45%. So I would say thumbs up, you're doing good, keep doing what you're doing. If that was 48, 50, 52, 53, 55%, and this includes service provider payroll, includes your service providers and your assistants. So you have to add assistant pay into this also. So they're doing good, but even if this is 2% off of your service dollars, and your service dollars are $100,000, that's $2,000 that you would be over budget just on that one line item, but you're not. So Salon Aura, you are in good shape thus far. Let's look at front desk payroll. Front desk support equals anyone I have for guest relations, my managers. If you are an owner that is a manager at the front desk, part of your salary will come from front desk support and the other part would come from owner salary, which I'm not going to get into because that's a whole nother conversation. But so this 8% of total sales. So hear me on this one. Total sales is service and revenue together, and that's your total nugget. Front desk support, we take off of total revenue, okay? So we take front desk support payroll divided by total revenue. So let's look at Salon Aura here. Let's say we did $130,000 in total revenue. That was $100,000 in service. Say we did $30,000 in retail, and we paid out $15,000 for our front desk support. That equals, when you get your profit and loss statement, it should say 11.5% that we paid out for front desk payroll. Now, what's the benchmark? It's 8%. So you might say, well, I'm a few percent over, not a big deal. Well, I'm going to show you what a big deal that is on the next page. Let's get to our back bar. Back bar, what is back bar? Back bar is considered all of the products that we use to service our guests, right? So it's color, developer, it's shampoo, conditioner, everything at the back bar, any back bar styling products that you're using. Even if you carry makeup and you have testers out there, the testers go under advertising and promotion, but if you have products that are sitting on the shelf that clients are taking and using, you can consider that also back bar. Total back bar dollars that I spent divided by the service dollars that came in, only service, because we're using the back bar for services, equals my back bar total. Okay, so let's just say we did $100,000 in service for the January, and I spent $7,000 in back bar. Back bars, that does not include like your foils and any baggies and gloves. That should go under salon supplies. That's a whole nother conversation I won't get into today, but on your profit and loss, that should be categorized under salon supplies. So you might say, well, I'm 1% over, Carrie. I'm like, it's supposed to be 6%, but it's 7. I mean, okay. So I want to show you what that looks like when all these little things, so we're not pre-booking all of our clients. Service provider payroll is good, but not front desk payroll. And our back bar we're 1% over. So I want to share with you what this translates into. And you guys, this is the power of knowing what your numbers are, okay? So I'm going to roll through these really quick. So we already figured out on the last page that we're at 40% pre-book. So 200 guests, if we were at 60%, 600 guests would have pre-booked and they would have come in probably in that next month. But we're missing those clients because they're going to wait and pre-book later. And so we're missing 200 clients if 400 out of the 600 goal was to pre-book. Let's just say you have a $50 ticket, and that's super conservative. I mean, our tickets in our salon are $130, $135 per client. So let's be conservative and just say it's $50 a ticket. That's $10,000 in the month of revenue you didn't get, but you can go ahead and plug in your dollar amount. I mean, if it was us, let me just do quick math because, you know, let's say we did $150 a ticket times 200 guests, that's $30,000 for us if we're missing out on those pre-books. $30,000 if I'm not pre-booking. So when I tell you we go through your benchmarks and what behaviors need to be instituted in order to create a profit, I'm talking about, I get into the weeds. Front desk support, we already know we were at 11.5%. Now we had, if we were on budget at 8%, we would have paid out $10,400. The difference between the $15,000 that we spent and the $10,400 is $4,600. If you're doing that every month, that's $4,600 a month that you're robbing from your bottom line. That money would have just dropped right to your profit. So if you're sitting out there and you're like, I can't get a paycheck unless I'm doing services, or my salon's barely breaking even, you got to get into the weeds. I call this like treasure hunt. My job as an owner is to go on a treasure hunt every single month and make sure that I can find the money. Okay. Now in the 7 steps course, we also have a budget worksheet that we give our participants, that you fill out a budget based on your sales from the previous week that gives you your budget moving forward on how much to order for products. It gives you a budget on how many hours you can schedule people to work up front based on the revenue. Okay, now let's get into back bar. We already determined that we were $1,000 over in back bar. And so let's add that a month. So if we're adding these up, that's $15,600 a month, and that's being conservative. And if we times that by 12, just on these 3 things that look pretty minor, you're missing out on almost $200,000 in annual sales. So this is when I say we have to work on our business and you're like, I can't get a paycheck. I don't know about you, but I could create a paycheck out of that $187,200. I could create a paycheck out of that. Some of it I'd have to pay some expenses out of, but I know that I would have a significant amount of that dropping to the bottom line. So just things to think about, all right? So again, identifying benchmarks, super important. Reading that money story in module 2, we do really spend time teaching you and understanding the P&L and where the benchmarks live on your profit and loss statement. When we get our profit and loss statement, not only do I get that statement, but I have all of the percentages and benchmarks along the side. So I have had to educate and teach my accountant how to give me my profit and loss statements. It's not for them to give me how they do it. It's for me to take control and charge of my business and say, this is how I want to see my report card. Module 3, every number tells a story. What's your story, right? Your numbers are going to tell you exactly how you're operating your business. Module 4, we're identifying goals and behaviors, and we're going to choose 1 to 2 to work on only. Sometimes I say to my owners, let's just take 1 expense benchmark and 1 sales benchmark, and let's just even though you might have 8 that you're like, I need to work on these, let's just take 1 or 2 at a time. We then help you create a team meeting to launch these new behaviors to your team. We teach you how to have a tracking system and also how to celebrate success, and how to celebrate their success and your success. So I want to go through here and kind of talk to you about what's in each module if you're interested in signing up for 7 steps, which I would love to have you a part of our community. Every single module, and there's 7 of them. There's a 5-minute intro video that I do. There's template downloads. So there is, like, I call them homework, but there's downloads, which you guys will get a link. Olivia will put that in the chat box so you can download it. But there are downloads in every single module that you print out before the video starts, because I do 20-minute videos per module. Sometimes there's 2 20-minute videos, but it's my goal that if you only have 30 minutes to work on your business, you can at least like work on one of the worksheets. And a lot of times what my participants do is they'll work alongside the video. So they'll stop the video, gather the numbers they need to get, and then hit play again, and then they can kind of keep moving forward. There's example templates for future reference. So like, let's say your pre-book is too low. We have examples of all the behaviors that you could pick one and say, you know what, this might resonate with my business, so we can take this on and start and use this for future. So I have all those examples. There's quizzes in each lesson and each module to make sure that you're understanding what it is that you are listening to, so that you can make really decisive decisions based on fact, not feelings. We also, yes, there's homework. We have a Facebook community of our participants, and we upload our homework. And we upload our homework so that I can look at it. I'm very active in that Facebook group, and I can give you advice. We also have other people we can call on that have been in the group for a long time that can offer advice. And so here is also what we have in this. We have some bonus modules in there, which is called Managing the Money Story. So we have this whole bonus module in there. We have a budget worksheet for ordering and for payroll. So you get to just download a Excel spreadsheet that has the budget on there. We also have a profit and loss template download that you can use and take to your accountant. And we have a profit and loss classification template. The classification template to me is critical so that you are classifying things in the right way, because if you are not putting the right things in the right classification, and your P&L won't be accurate and your benchmarks will be off. We also have, this is about, I do just financial coaching. And when I do one session, this is a $550 value, but that is in the class. And then we also have another bonus program in there called Coaching Like a Pro. And we have in there coaching conversation worksheets and blank templates so that you can be proactive in your conversations with your team. So I usually have people fill out their worksheets before they go into a coaching session. And when I do these templates on their own, it's a $350 value. So the class itself for 7 steps is $997. The value is $1897. And we do the modules, they get released once a week. So once people join, a module will drop for that week. You'll work on it. A second module 2 drops the next week. So all the 7 modules drop over the 7-week period. They never expire. Even if you work on module 1 for 3 weeks, then module 2 and 3 will be waiting for you when you're done with that. You can totally go at your own pace. We launched this, how did I know in January of 2020 there was going to be a global pandemic? This is when I launched this virtual program. There was not any like it, and it's been amazing because people really like to work from their homes at this point. You have lifetime access to the course, and you have lifetime access to our Facebook support group. And this just has nothing to do with the 7 steps, but if you guys, and I know Sam for sure is on this, who's in this group, you guys can visit our Beauty Backbone Facebook page every Monday morning. Well, almost every, I've taken this month off, but I show up at 8:30 Pacific time. to do what I call Mindset Mondays. And I do 30-minute business mindset shifting, motivation Monday type thing for 30 minutes, almost every Monday on our Facebook page. So you can go to Beauty Backbone. You'll see that under events. I'll be getting our event set up for the month of August coming up here. So I know that it's 10 o'clock. You guys have spent some great time with us. I want to thank you, Aura, so much, and Olivia, for having me and allowing me to share my passion with the community. So I hope that you guys enjoyed it and you know how to reach me. So